In this last section, we're going to look at the effect of the different influences on some different examples. And the first one here is this idea about diet in a multicultural society. And you can think about there's different cultural aspects. So Jewish people, Islamic people don't eat pork. And there's different rules on things like shellfish and a whole range of things there as well. But one of the things there is just this idea that, particularly in Western society, there is a lot of effort put in to this idea of trying to have perceptions about what is healthy and what isn't. And you can go back, even 50, 60 years, where things like methadone, which is essentially methamphetamine, was a common chemist drug, particularly for housewives in sort of that Western tradition who are seen to, you've got to be thin, you've got to be this, you've got to be there, so why don't you take meth? You also, going back even further, that in some cases, cases like tapeworms, so introducing a parasite into your body so that it would take nutrients from your body and you could just eat whatever you wanted and you wouldn't put on weight. And of course, we can sort of look at these examples here and, oh, well, that's silly, that's stupid. But we live in the modern world where you've got your Photoshop, you've got your Instagram and social media, where people look to influencers on social media and think, well, I want to be like them, even though that what they're purveying or what they're putting out to the world isn't what the reality is. And so people have unrealistic expectations of health and beauty. And so it's really important to sort of understand that so that you're not guilted into feeling something that you shouldn't. And so in that case here's an example of an image of Britney Spears. She, at the time of the photo, was in her late 30s. And on the left, that's what a person in their late 30s may look like. But of course, you can't be on the front of a fashion mag with that there. And so what's happened is that someone's gone in there, they've changed the tone of her skin, they've gotten rid of wrinkles, they've gotten rid of spots. And, young women look at that and say, oh my God, she's so old, but she looks so whatever. You have other examples. So a picture of Katy Perry. And this is probably even more extreme than that previous one, because you look at the left-hand side, a couple of spots on her face, just tiny little wrinkle maybe. Nothing wrong with that photo, she looks perfectly fine. But it's been airbrushed, and so the photo on the right almost looks like a cartoon. It doesn't actually look that natural. Have an example here, Miley Cyrus, and everything's been changed a little bit. Her hair colour's been slightly changed. Marks on her face have been removed. She's been airbrushed a little bit there. And of course, for some reason, they decided to inflate her chest a little bit. But of course, it's not just women. Justin Bieber did a Photoshop, obviously there for Calvin Klein. And of course, he's looking pretty taut there. He's got sort of the six-pack going. But of course, for the ad, they pumped up his arms, they pumped up his chest muscles a little bit more. And again, the photo on the right is just a fantasy photo. It's not what he actually looks like. But people are looking at that and saying, well, I want to be like Justin Bieber, so I've got to be like that. And they're not being like the reality, they're being like the fantasy. And of course, probably one of the more heinous versions of this is Prince George. He's less than a year old there, but he was photoshopped in a magazine because for some reason he obviously didn't look babyish enough. They've changed his skin tone, they've changed some of the tiny little, if there's any even blemishes there. So, some of the shadows on his face have been removed and that there. And this is the thing to realise. Whenever you see an image in media, it's probably not what that person actually really looks like. Everyone has imperfections, and reality is very different. Now, of course, as well, in terms of traditional medical treatments as well, we've explored that a few times. And so this idea that there is traditional medicine that has potential use. And, herbal medicine, a lot of people, particularly from the Asian background, will do things like herbal teas. Indigenous Australians have certain weeds, certain plants that they carry with them and that they use when things like the common cold, flu, and anything like that there as well. There's plenty of plants in that treat different conditions. If you look down the bottom there, you can see that you've also got the idea that the indigenous mobs, the indigenous nations, have different things there. So the Warrabri in the Northern Territory, they have a treatment for earaches, which is squeezing part of the witchetty grub into the ear. That might sound a little bit gross until you realise that in Uluru, they're squeezing rabbit urine into the ear. Now, that's obviously a newish one that's come about since Western civilization or Western occupation, however you want to describe that. But that's an important thing to realise. And with there being hundreds of Indigenous nations in Australia, that also means that there's potentially hundreds, thousands of different treatments that could be exploited for the benefit of all. You also have there as well a whole heap of other ones there. As we're saying there are so many potential treatments that bush medicine could actually have quite a beneficial effect in the future. Finally here, just talking about mining practices again, and this idea of mining developments, it can have potential benefit for a lot of people. The one thing this graphic sort of shows here is just realizing that a lot of the preparation in this doesn't yield profit, but it all needs to be done. And the early production, again, no product, but once a mine's profitable, it does need to make a lot of money so that when things like redevelopment and reclamation happen, it can happen without an economic loss.